So I'm going to go ahead and get us started. Most of you guys on here, I know everybody. I'm Chelsea, your Chief Wellness Officer, and I've been presenting this virtual wellness summit as a way to just provide some of the resources and information that I have that I think is vital to living a healthy lifestyle. And so we've had presenters on talking about, last week was real estate, wellness and real estate. The week before that was some conscious performance coaching, and we have some other exciting things coming up too. So today, I'm pleased to present to you my dear friend and colleague, Dr. Juliana King. Juliana is my go-to for all things with anything that happens to my body or my health. I call her first. She's my one-stop shop. And so I had to share this most valuable resource. And Juliana has been in the functional medicine space for some years now and helps a lot of people optimize their health. And so we always talk about health and immunity and what it means to live well. And I think Juliana has such great ideas and concepts and ways that people can think about their health that I really had to have her on here. So today we're talking about immunity. I think it's so important. The immune system is often very much misunderstood, and we hear things like boosting your immune system and all that stuff. And I just asked Juliana if she could come on and explain that to all of you really amazing real estate agents for me. So I will hand it over to Juliana, and she'll be able to introduce herself far better than I can professionally. So I'll let her take care of that. So it is all yours, Juliana.
Hi, everyone. As Chelsea said, my name is Dr. Juliana King, and I have a functional medicine and Chinese medicine blended medical practice in Los Angeles, California. And Chelsea asked me to come on and talk to you guys about demystifying your immune system. So I'm going to start today with just saying, I just want to give you guys another way to think about your immune system, because in our culture, we talk a lot about boosting it. And it's like, well, what does it mean to boost your immune system? And then I'm going to give you a little bit more of a framework. I'm going to give you the body systems that you should be thinking about to optimize your immune system function. And then finally, I actually got COVID back in November of last year. And I thought I would share a little bit of my experience with COVID, how I prepared my body, how I worked with my body through COVID, and then kind of like my post-COVID experience as well. Since I know that that's like the big reason why probably a lot of you guys are on today. So what does it mean to support your immune system? Your immune system isn't like a box in the body that has immune functions. Your immune system, technically you have immune cells, you have, T lymphocytes, B lymphocytes, macrophages, but I don't want to talk to you guys about that because that's not, that kind of reductionist thinking isn't really going to help you live a healthier life. What is going to help you is thinking about your body in concert. So all of your organs functioning optimally together when they are working in harmony, is supporting your immune system. So I would like you to just sit now and reflect, like, how do you feel on a scale of 1 to 10? 10 being you feel great, you have plenty of energy to get through your day, you're sleeping well. And 1 being, you're dragging yourself out of bed. Maybe you're having like a big lull in the afternoon, you're having fitful sleep. Like, where would you fall on that scale? I'd like you to reflect on this number, because if you're, say, below an 8, your immune system's not functioning optimally. If you're overburdened by, toxicity because you're consuming pesticide-laden food, or you're drinking too much, or you're not getting the restorative sleep you need, your immune system's not functioning optimally. So with that in mind, I want to get a framework for you guys together of like some little things you can kind of like check mark that you're getting, that will then tell me that your immune system is kind of in shape and ready to go. So the first one that I think nobody really gives much thought about is your mucosal membranes. So what are your mucosal membranes? Your mucosal membranes line every orifice of your body that interfaces with the outside world. So they line your nose, your mouth, your genitals, and they're the first line of defense against any kind of invading bugs. And one of their jobs is actually to trap these viruses and bacteria before they make their way into your body and get rid of them. So mucosal membrane health looks like being properly hydrated. They love moist air. So if you live in a really dry climate like Jackson Hole, you should have an air humidifier in your home. You should be amping up your water intake. You should be over like 100 ounces a day. You can even add like a sea salt to your water, because that actually helps you to hold on to hydration for longer. And then you can also consume vitamin A rich foods. Vitamin A is the #1 nutrient for mucosal membranes. So that looks like sweet potatoes, carrots, liver, broccoli, and also the use of cold medicines should be, sparing if possible, because they dry up these precious membranes that when they're not moist, they can't trap the viruses and bacteria. When they're moist, that's like when it's kind of like a gel that traps things. So if you're not getting that nice gel, your mucous membranes are not doing their best work to keep you safe. So that's #1. #2, I'm sure you guys are a little more familiar with because everyone's talking about it right now, and that's the gut health. So your gut is the other thing that is consistently interfacing with the outside world, because you take food that's outside of your body and you put it inside of your body. Gut health, the two things you need to check box for gut health is enough healthy bacteria in the gut. And then the other piece is the lining of the gut needs to be healthy in order for, if it's not intact, it will actually break open and leak into your bloodstream and be a huge challenge to your immune system. So if you have a history of drinking a lot of chlorinated tap water, chlorine kills healthy bacteria in the gut. Pesticide-laden food, pesticides will damage the healthy flora of the gut. Antibiotic use, if you have a rich history of antibiotic use, you may consider probiotics to help repair some of that, but those are all things that are going to leave your gut at risk of infection. And these healthy bacteria, part of their job is they actually protect you against viruses and bacteria. They'll actually help the immune system mount a response against them. So every day you can monitor your gut health by looking at your bowel movements. And so if you're having consistent constipation, consistent diarrhea, or you're not evacuating your bowels comfortably, you should probably hire a functional medicine practitioner like myself, an herbalist, a naturopath, someone to help you get your gut in line. As maybe some of you have heard, they say that 80% of your immune system is in your gut. And while I don't know if this number is, the gold standard, it is a rough estimate telling us how powerful our gut health is in managing our overall immune system function. Oh yeah, I just saw Chelsea. If you guys have questions as I'm talking, I'm happy to address them at the end. We can have a little Q&A section. The next thing you guys may not have thought too much about is your body temperature. So fevers are healthy actually when they're under 102, so like 101 and below, and for a short period of time, because they heat up the body to kill pathogens. So I wouldn't be in a rush to break a low level fever if you do get sick. In my case, and in the case for a lot of people, some people don't run fevers very easily. I'm one of those people. This might be a little bit of a genetic thing. I also have a history of autoimmune disease that could play into it. So because I don't run a fever, I will actually simulate a bit of a fever if I feel a little run down and like I may be catching a cold or a flu. You can do that by taking a really hot bath or a really hot shower. And when you come out, you bundle up and have a little bit of hot tea until you break a sweat. And that's a nice little like faux fever that you can do if you're feeling run down, but your body hasn't initiated that fever response. And of course, if you do have a fever, you let it run its course naturally if it's under 101. And if it's 102, then for a sustained period, that's when you would reach out to a medical doctor and probably be taking medications to break that fever. The next piece is vitamins and minerals. So like, we all like to eat healthy for our waistline and to look good, but what's the point of eating healthy for the immune system? Well, the immune system actually cycles through nutrients like it will actually blow through your supply of vitamin C or vitamin B or zinc to help feed those immune cells to fight an infection. So if there was ever a time to like dial in your diet, this would be the year, because as we know, we need our immune systems functioning at peak performance to handle something like COVID. And then the other side of that is alcohol and sugar, which I know a lot of people struggle with, especially in this COVID environment. People are drinking more. Both alcohol and sugar do inhibit the immune system from mounting an appropriate response. I know the alcohol piece is really hard for people to cut out, and so I'm not saying to give up all alcohol, but I would say be strategic about alcohol consumption. Can you drink more water to help your body filter the alcohol the day you're consuming alcohol and the days after? Can you potentially take a B complex to support your liver in getting rid of the alcohol? Can you consider cutting back on alcohol if you know you're going to be socializing, traveling, or maybe you've just been run down, like you're not sleeping enough lately, or your diet's been a little bit off? That would be the time to really like be mindful of your drinking until you have the other pieces of your health really dialed in and you can tolerate the alcohol a little bit better. So for stress management, I know that's another big one, especially in the face of COVID. The reason you should care about stress is because there's a hormone in the body called corticosteroid, and it goes high when we're stressed out. And this actually suppresses one of our big immune cells called lymphocytes. It will suppress the amount of lymphocytes produced, and that's why a lot of times people will get sick when they're stressed out. So I want to just give you guys a little education about like the stress response in the body so you guys can manage a little better. We have two states. We have fight, flight, and rest, digest. When you're in rest, digest, that's when you're yawning. You're able to fall asleep really easily. It's easy to digest your food. When you're stressed out and your immune system, or sorry, your nervous system is really ramped up, this looks like your body will be more rigid. You'll take shallow breaths. You could break a light sweat. You'll have anxious, like fast thoughts. And this is a sign that, you know, you're producing more stress hormone and you're a little more vulnerable to infection. So what can you do? Because, you know, the day is long and a lot of us have periods of stress throughout each day. So there's exercise, taking breaks during the day to go for walks. And then the most easy thing I've been suggesting very successfully with patients is to have them do a really easy breathing practice. You can do it at your desk and you can do it a few times a day and it only takes a few minutes. So my favorite breathing practice, which is really simple, is that you breathe 4 seconds in, you hold for 4 seconds, and then you breathe 8 seconds out. And that nice long out breath of 8 seconds is what stimulates your parasympathetic system to kick in and get out of that fight or flight. And so you can do 3 to 5 minutes just a few times a day and reset your whole nervous system so that your immune system is back functioning optimally and like ready to handle the stress of the day. My next one is the sun exposure, which I know is a big issue in winter for a lot of you guys, especially out in Jackson Hole. So sun exposure does help to reset your nervous system and put you in rest, digest. It enhances your mood. You'll reduce that stress hormone, corticosteroid, when you're out in the sun. And then the other piece is your vitamin D synthesis. Your vitamin D synthesis will be a lot lower in the winter, as most of you guys know. So I can comfortably recommend that people take 2,000 international units a day if you aren't. Even the CDC has come out and they never speak about vitamins and minerals or any of that. And they've actually said that they're seeing that COVID patients, the more severe ones, have insufficient vitamin D. So that's like the #1 thing that I think we should all be doing in the winter is supporting vitamin D. If you want to get the exact correct amount for your body, you do have to get a blood test. And I do recommend this if you live in a winter climate, haven't been supplementing with D, because if you're critically low, you're going to have to be on a much higher amount than 2,000 international units. But I can't recommend more than that because vitamin D is a vitamin that you actually store. So too much of it can be toxic to the body, and so you really want to get the amount correct. And then the next piece is lung health. Lungs are the first things to get hit by pathogens. And obviously in the case of COVID, we're seeing that COVID goes right for the lungs. In Chinese medicine, we call the lungs the tender organ because it is sensitive and vulnerable to infections. So I know a lot of people who don't have breathing issues or asthma, they don't tend to really think about their lungs. But again, this is another organ that interfaces with the outside world all day, every day, thousands of times a day because you breathe all day, every day. So lungs at rest, they use about 50% of their lung capacity, and you don't really get an exchange of air in the very bottom lobes of the lungs until you're exercising or doing some kind of breathing practice. So I really recommend that you engage in some kind of hard exercise 3 days a week, or if you're more of like a yoga type person or do light walks, that you add a breath practice to really cleanse the air that sits at the bottom of the lungs and isn't exchanged so readily. So not only are you increasing the health of your lungs when you're doing exercise or breath practice, but you're increasing your mood. It's also great for cardiovascular health to exercise your lungs like this. And yeah, I mean, this is something that people just kind of leave off the table, because if you don't actually have a breathing problem, when do you really think about your lungs? And then the other piece of this is that if you're indoors all day, every day, indoor air can be relatively toxic, especially if you live in somewhere like Jackson Hole. You probably never open your windows because it's freezing. So I would recommend, if that's the case, that you sleep with an air purifier on, and that you have an air purifier running in your home, so that your lungs aren't being irritated by dust or any kind of like gases coming off furniture or carpet. Your lungs not being inflamed is like definitely a really key piece to keeping them in shape for COVID. That's what I do. I sleep every night with an air purifier on. And I also, and I'll get into this too, I've been very dedicated to supporting lung health through this year because of this virus and how hard it is on the lungs. And then finally, sleep. I mean, I know this is another one that's, I feel like everyone kind of knows this, but it's like, okay, well, what does it mean? So when you sleep, your body is producing antibodies, more antibodies to fight infection than during awake time. You're also ramping up your detoxification processes while you sleep, and then you clean a bunch of waste from the day that's kind of sitting in the brain through what's called the lymphatic system. Your brain gets this nice bath at night, and you really need at least 7 hours to get that beautiful bath and detox process. And then additionally, your body is on a circadian rhythm. So you are linked up with the sun and the moon and the cycles of the planet that we're on. And so getting to bed by 11 is really critical for hormone health. And hormone health, again, is tied into immune health. So get to bed by 11 o'clock if at all possible. And if this is an area where you struggle, it's difficult to fall asleep, it's difficult to stay asleep, I can't recommend enough working with a naturopath or functional medicine practitioner to get your sleep hygiene in order. And then plus it feeds right into mood, right? If you wake up and you've rested well, you have a better stress response throughout the day, you're more alert, and all that goes into like feeling vital through the day. It starts with good sleep. And then finally, I do want to talk to you guys a little bit about my experience with COVID. I know that's a curiosity for anyone who hasn't gotten it. My first big asterisk with my experience with COVID is it seems very clear that there's a genetic piece, and that it does tend to like rip through certain families and be very deadly. So I am sort of asterisking, saying I clearly had a genetic advantage in the fact that I did not have a severe case with COVID. That said, as with COVID, a cold, a flu, any kind of bacterial infection, proper like a healthy biology and like supporting your immune system and like all the functions in the body to function optimally is going to give you a better chance at dealing with any kind of infection or virus that comes into the body. So to start, like as a base, my background and the reason I got into healthcare at all is because I had an autoimmune disease and I had to learn how to heal my own body. So before COVID, I was already very dedicated in terms of like my health foundation. My diet is majority organic food, which is, pesticide free. Pesticides are very detrimental to the healthy bacteria of the gut. I drink pure spring water, regular tap water, chlorine, fluoride. These are chemicals that are not good for your body. Spring water is also mineral rich, which powers a lot of different cellular functions of the body to work optimally. I decided to take 3 different supplements regularly when they announced the pandemic. There's one called cordyceps, and this comes from the Chinese medicine pharmacopoeia. It's used very readily, actually, by Olympic athletes. It's really good for reducing inflammation in the lung, and there are studies that show that this is what this herb does. And it's also known to help your body mount a proper immune response. So I took cordyceps every day, vitamin D every day, which is foundational, and vitamin C, which is very protective to the cells. I also spent a lot of time outdoors, working out outside with Chelsea. thank God for her. She got me outside at least 3 days a week. And then also, processing my emotions and the stress, like we all experienced it. I mean, we're still experiencing this. Experience has been incredibly stressful and difficult on our bodies, and has impacted all of us really intensely on an emotional level. So whether you're doing journaling or breath work or stretching or doing therapy, just something to move that emotion out, because emotion trapped in the body creates that stress response, which then suppresses our body's ability to fight infection. And then finally, when I got COVID, I put myself on a protocol, which I'm happy to email to anyone who asks me. And again, the whole problem with our industry right now is that we don't have clinical studies that prove the efficacy of X, Y, and Z. But just based off, nutritional science, we can make some healthy guesses about what's appropriate to take for a virus. So I took a very high dose of vitamin A, which is supporting that mucosal immunity. I took a very high dose of vitamin C, which is protecting my cells. I took a high dose of vitamin D, which is, it works almost like a steroid for your immune system. I took an amino acid called N-acetylcysteine, and they are studying this right now for COVID patients. It reduces inflammation of the lung cilia, and it also helps to thin mucus. And it's also a precursor to a really strong antioxidant in the body called glutathione. So it helps your body produce more of this master antioxidant. And then on the Chinese herbal side, I work with a company called Panexia, and they make a blend of antiviral herbs called Antiviry. And I really love this formula. I can in no way say this treats, cures, prevents COVID, but the Chinese medicine does have a long history of working with viruses. This isn't the first pandemic for them. They've had hundreds of them, and many of them medically documented the kinds of herbs that they use with success. And so this formula has 3 herbs that are very powerful antivirals. And what that means from an herbal perspective is that it's slowing the replication of the virus in your body. So whenever you're taking antivirals, you want to catch it very early. Like the second you find out you even remotely feel funny is when you would take antiviral herbs, because you want to catch the virus before it's replicating. And then once it's mass replicated, the herbs aren't as functional for you anymore, and you're not going to get the same benefit out of them. So I always recommend stocking antiviral herbs just in your cabinet. And the second you just feel a little funny sore throat or a little heat in the body or feverish, you immediately start on something to fight whatever's going on. In terms of diet, I did chicken soup pretty much all day, every day for at least a week straight. I didn't touch anything with sugar in it. I consumed so much garlic and ginger because those are both food-based antivirals. I had zinc lozenges, which keep the virus from sticking in your throat. They'll actually kind of like slip down with zinc. And then in terms of mindset, I mean, the second I found out, I just went into a place of like total trust in my body, that my body could handle this. I played, this is like a little on the hippy dippy side, but I'll be honest, this is what I did. I also played, they're called solfeggio frequencies. They're available on Spotify. And the theory behind them is that these are healing frequencies. There's certain like sounds that produce different healing effects in the body. And I can't prove that they worked, but this is all part of like mindset and just feeling like I was doing everything that I can, which feels really good for me. So I played some solfeggio frequencies, and then I also took lots of hot baths, which would not have been appropriate if I was running a fever. But in my case, since I was not running a fever, I did a lot of hot baths with mustard and eucalyptus, which are both excellent for lung health. In my case, I was very lucky. My experience with COVID lasted about 4 days. I had a little bit of dry lung that proceeded to get a little bit of like a hot feeling. And I had a sharp headache that felt like an altitude headache. And then the third day I had like an upper lung pain, and then it really just started to dissipate. That said, there is research that some people who have mild cases of COVID become long haulers. So they think that they did well with the virus, and then they end up with these kind of like long-term chronic fatigue or neurological issues going on. So I was very mindful, especially with my history of autoimmune, to put myself on a post-COVID protocol. In my case, I took a very high load of anti-inflammatories and antioxidants, and I also took supplements to support my mitochondrial production. And your mitochondria are like the powerhouse of your cell, and there is some evidence that they can be damaged by a virus like COVID. So that's what I did for me. Everyone who has COVID, their post-COVID protocol will be a little bit different depending on what kind of symptoms they're presenting with. So this is another area where if you know someone who has COVID, or you get COVID at some point, I really recommend reaching out to someone in the natural health field to put you on some kind of post-COVID protocol to mitigate any kind of like lingering symptoms and prevent what could end up becoming a chronic illness. Some people post-COVID are even getting autoimmune diseases as a result of COVID. So being really dialed in on your diet after COVID is just as important, if not more important, than your pre-COVID experience. So that's my talk for you guys today. I hope you learned something. And thank you so much, Chelsea, for inviting me on. And if anyone has any questions, please feel free to type them in the chat. If not, you're also welcome to email me, and I can provide some of the supplements that I listed here today for your review. And my email is hello@drjulianaking.com. And I think Chelsea can also pass that along if anyone has any questions.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you so much. Thank you, Diane. Thanks everybody for being on. If you have questions, you can put them in the chat. We'll stay on for just a couple minutes. I think that was awesome. So many good points you made, Juliana, and so many things I think, I know a lot of the agents know some of these things. Like I was laughing about the, I've sent out stuff on like binaural beats and ways to synchronize your like breathing and heart rate and all these really fun things that we've talked about. But you made some key points that I took a couple notes, some interesting things. So thank you very much for that. I hope you guys enjoyed. Any questions? Excellent. Then I think that wraps us up for the day. I hope to see most of you next week. We still have some exciting sessions going on every Friday at the same time, 11:30 Pacific, 12:30 Mountain Standard Time. So I hope you'll join us for these various sessions. Awesome. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, guys. Thanks, everyone.
Bye. Thank you.